Emily Carter had always believed life was a straight line. Study hard, get a job, and everything would fall into place. At 28, she was an event planner in Chicago. Her days were filled with schedules, flowers, and endless phone calls. Her friends often teased that she was married to her work, and in many ways, they were right. She barely made space for anything beyond deadlines. But that night, everything shifted. It began with a mistake, a small, ordinary one most people might forget. Rushing home from work, drained and distracted, Emily boarded the wrong train. Instead of heading north toward her apartment, she ended up on a line going west. She realized it too late, the city lights blurring past the window as exhaustion settled over her. She sighed, deciding to ride a few more stops before switching back. It was then she noticed him. A man in a navy coat sitting across from her looked up from his book. His eyes met hers for only a second, but something about the glance stayed. He had calm hazel eyes and a tired smile, as if he, too, had carried a long day on his shoulders. Emily looked away quickly, embarrassed, telling herself it was nothing, just another stranger. When the train halted suddenly, she almost lost her balance. The man stood and offered his hand without hesitation. "You okay?" His voice was steady. "Yes, thank you," Emily managed, her cheeks warm. She took the seat across from him again, silently scolding herself for overthinking. The train lights flickered, and a brief silence hung between them. Then he spoke again. "I don't usually take this line either." "Funny coincidence." Emily blinked. "You're on the wrong train, too?" "Seems like it." He chuckled softly, closing his book. "I'm Daniel. Daniel Hayes." She hesitated before replying. "Emily. Emily Carter." Their words were simple, but there was a strange pull in the air, like destiny had whispered into that empty train car. For years, Emily had dismissed the idea of fate. Yet, here she was, feeling as if this mistake had placed her exactly where she was meant to be. They began talking carefully at first, then with growing ease. Daniel was an architect, recently moved back to Chicago after years away. He spoke of his love for design, how buildings carried stories, how every corner of the city felt alive to him. Emily, against her usual guarded nature, found herself sharing pieces of her own life, her love for arranging the small details that made people's happiest days even brighter. The train ride stretched longer than she had expected. By the time she realized she had gone too far west, she almost didn't care. For once, being late didn't bother her. When they both stepped off at the same station to switch trains back, the night air felt colder, but also sharper, alive. Daniel walked beside her, hands in his pockets, speaking about the city skyline. Emily kept stealing glances at him, trying to understand why she felt this sudden, unexplainable closeness. At the platform, an announcement blared overhead, and their train arrived. She hesitated, almost afraid the moment would slip away once they boarded. Daniel noticed. "Listen, this might sound strange, but would you like to grab coffee sometime? Just to continue this accidental conversation." Her heart skipped. She wanted to say yes, but something inside her warned against rushing. Life wasn't supposed to work this way, was it? One mistake leading to this. She gave a careful smile. "Maybe." The doors opened and she stepped inside before she could second-guess herself. Daniel stayed on the platform, his gaze following her as the train pulled away. He lifted his hand in a small wave and Emily felt something stir deep in her chest. She leaned back in her seat, whispering to herself, it was just a mistake. That's all. But a quiet voice inside her argued, or maybe it was something more. And as the city blurred past again, Emily knew this night was not going to leave her heart so easily. The train rocked gently as Emily sat staring out the window, but her mind wasn't on the passing streets. She kept replaying Daniel's face in her memory, his calm eyes, the way he asked about coffee so casually, as though it wasn't the very thing her heart secretly wanted. By the time she reached her apartment, it was late. The small space felt quieter than usual. She dropped her bag on the couch and poured herself a glass of water, trying to shake off the strange weight in her chest. It was just a mistake, she whispered again, though the words didn't sound convincing anymore. The next few days went on like normal, or at least they should have. She planned a wedding reception, argued with florists, and answered endless phone calls from anxious brides. But in every quiet moment, Daniel's voice echoed in her mind. She remembered his laugh, the way he talked about architecture with such passion. She didn't even know why she cared so much. He was just a stranger she might never see again. Until fate proved otherwise. 3 days later, Emily was organizing the final details for a large corporate gala. The venue was one of Chicago's newest downtown towers, a glass and steel masterpiece that had been the talk of the city. She arrived early, clipboard in hand, determined to keep her mind focused. As she walked through the lobby, checking floral arrangements and lighting setups, a familiar voice startled her. "Emily." She turned sharply, and there he was. Daniel Hayes standing by the reception desk, dressed neatly in a dark blazer. Her breath caught. "Daniel." He smiled almost sheepishly. "I can't believe this. You're working here?" Yes. I'm planning tonight's event." Her words stumbled out, her heart racing too fast. Daniel's smile widened, his expression lighting up the sleek, cold lobby. "That's incredible. I designed this building. My firm did, at least. I just didn't expect to run into you here." Emily blinked. Of all the coincidences in a city of millions, here he was again. She couldn't decide if it was wonderful or terrifying. They walked together through the lobby as staff hurried around them. Daniel pointed out details of the building, explaining how the curves of glass caught sunlight at different times of the day, how the structure was meant to feel both powerful and welcoming. Emily listened, caught between admiration for his work and the quiet thrill of simply being near him. But she kept her guard up. She reminded herself, this is chance, nothing more. Don't read into it. Yet destiny seemed unwilling to let her forget. That evening, as the gala began, Emily stood near the back, ensuring everything ran smoothly. She spotted Daniel several times, speaking with investors, laughing with colleagues. He carried himself with quiet confidence, but every so often his eyes searched the room until they landed on her. When their gazes met across the glittering crowd, Emily felt her breath hitch. He excused himself from a conversation and made his way toward her. "You look like you're making this whole event happen," he teased gently, standing beside her. "That's my job," Emily replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm glad we crossed paths again," Daniel said softly. There was no rush in his tone, no pressure, just honesty. Emily's walls wavered. She wanted to believe it was all coincidence. But as she stood in that shimmering hall with music floating and lights glittering, she couldn't shake the thought that something bigger was at play. Before she could answer, one of her assistants rushed over, pulling her away to fix a last-minute issue. She left Daniel standing near the bar, watching her go. Later, when the night ended and the crowd thinned, Emily finally stepped outside into the cool air. She hugged her jacket closer, exhausted yet strangely restless. And then, Emily. She turned. Daniel was there waiting, his hands in his pockets, his expression uncertain but hopeful. "I know you're busy," he began. "But would you let me walk you home? Just this once?" Her heart raced, torn between caution and the deep pull she couldn't ignore. She opened her mouth, searching for an answer, and then her phone buzzed. A call. Urgent. She glanced down at the name flashing on the screen, her face paling. Her sister. At this hour. Emily froze, caught between the unexpected pull of destiny and the sudden weight of family worry. Emily's phone buzzed again, the screen flashing her sister's name. The urgency in the late-night call left her no choice. She held up a hand toward Daniel. Her voice rushed. I'm sorry. I have to take this." Stepping a few feet away, she answered. "Claire, what's wrong?" On the other end, her younger sister's voice trembled. "Emily, I messed up. Can you come, please? I don't know who else to call." Her heart clenched. Claire rarely asked for help, and when she did, it was serious. "Where are you?" Emily asked, already grabbing her bag. Daniel watched from a distance, concern etched into his face. She ended the call quickly, turned to him, and forced a steady tone. "I have to go. Family thing. Do you need a ride?" He asked gently. The offer almost broke her. Part of her wanted to say yes, to lean on him for just a little while, but she shook her head. "No. Thank you. I'll be fine." Daniel hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right. But Emily, I meant what I said earlier. I'm glad we met again." She gave him a faint smile before rushing toward the street. His words lingered, warming the cold night air around her, even as worry for Claire pulled her forward. Claire's apartment was a 20-minute cab ride away. When Emily arrived, she found her sister sitting on the couch, eyes red from crying. Empty wine glasses stood on the coffee table, and a broken frame lay on the floor. "Claire." Emily hurried to her, sitting beside her. "What happened?" "I fought with Ryan," Claire whispered. "He left." "I don't even know if we're still," her voice cracked, tears spilling. "I just didn't know who else to call." Emily wrapped an arm around her, holding her tightly. "It's okay. I'm here. You're not alone." The hours passed slowly. Emily stayed until Claire finally fell asleep, her breathing soft and steady. Only then did she slip out quietly, exhaustion pressing heavy on her shoulders. As she stepped into the early dawn streets, she couldn't help but think of Daniel. The way he had looked at her outside the gala. The way his voice softened when he asked to walk her home. She told herself she couldn't afford distractions. Not now. Her family needed her. Her career needed her. And yet, deep down she felt something shifting, something she couldn't explain. Days turned into a week. Emily buried herself in work, checking in on Claire often, pretending the memory of Daniel wasn't haunting her every quiet moment. She didn't expect to see him again. But fate wasn't done. One Friday afternoon, Emily was rushing across the plaza near the riverfront, late for a client meeting, when she heard a familiar voice call her name. "Emily." She turned and there he was again. Daniel, holding a rolled-up set of blueprints under his arm, his expression lighting up at the sight of her. Her breath caught. "Daniel. What are you doing here?" "My firm's new project," he said, gesturing to the construction site nearby. "We're designing the new arts center." Then his eyes softened. "And what about you? Rushing to save the world again?" She laughed despite herself, the tension easing. "Just a client meeting." For a moment, they stood in the bustling plaza, the city moving fast around them, as though the world had pressed pause just for the two of them. Daniel's gaze held hers with quiet determination. "Emily, can we stop leaving this to chance? We keep running into each other, and I don't think that's an accident anymore. Let me take you to dinner. No rushing, no interruptions. Just one evening." Emily's heart pounded. She wanted to say yes, but fear tugged at her. What if this was just a fleeting spark? What if she let herself fall only to regret it later? Her silence stretched too long. Daniel tilted his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "Think about it. I'll be around." And just like that, he walked away toward the construction site, leaving her standing in the plaza, torn between caution and the magnetic pull of something she couldn't deny. She watched him disappear into the crowd, her chest tight. Deep down, she knew this wasn't over. The weekend passed in a blur of errands and unfinished emails, but Emily couldn't shake Daniel's words. "We keep running into each other, and I don't think that's an accident anymore." They played in her head like a song she couldn't turn off. Every time she told herself to let it go, her heart argued louder. On Sunday evening, Claire stopped by Emily's apartment, holding 2 cups of coffee and wearing a gentler expression than before. "You've been quiet," Claire said, settling onto the couch. "Something's on your mind." Emily hesitated, then confessed. "I met someone. By accident. Or maybe not. I don't even know." Claire's eyebrows rose. "Someone, as in romantic someone?" Emily rolled her eyes, trying to downplay it. "It's complicated. We've only met a few times. I keep telling myself it's just coincidence, but it feels different." Her sister leaned forward, her tone softer now. "Emily, maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe it's timing. You've been living inside your work for years. Maybe the universe is trying to tell you something." Emily stared into her coffee cup, the steam rising like a quiet answer. Deep down, she knew Claire was right. The following Thursday, Emily found herself standing outside the art center construction site. She told herself she was just passing through, but the truth was she wanted to see him. Daniel spotted her almost immediately. His face broke into a surprised smile, and he jogged over, dust on his shoes and a pencil tucked behind his ear. "Emily," he said, slightly out of breath. "I didn't expect, I was nearby," she interrupted, though they both knew it wasn't true. He studied her carefully, his hazel eyes warm. "So, does this mean you've thought about dinner?" Her lips curved, half reluctant, half surrendering. Maybe. His grin widened. I'll take maybe. That Saturday night, Emily finally allowed herself to slow down. She chose a soft navy dress. Nothing extravagant, but it felt different from her usual work attire. When she arrived at the restaurant, Daniel was already waiting, standing to greet her with that same calm steadiness that always disarmed her. Over dinner, they talked, really talked, not just about work, but about childhood memories, regrets, and quiet dreams. Daniel admitted he had once been engaged, but called it off when he realized he was more in love with the idea of marriage than the woman herself. Emily shared how her parents' messy divorce made her cautious about love, how she often chose safety over risk. There was no pressure between them, no need for perfect words, just honesty. And for the first time in years, Emily felt seen. When they stepped out into the night air afterward, the city lights glittered on the river. Daniel paused, his hands in his pockets, his voice gentle. Emily, I don't want to rush you, but I also don't want to ignore what's happening here. I feel like I've been waiting a long time to meet someone like you. Her heart thudded, every instinct screaming to be careful. But her soul whispered something different. Maybe this wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was exactly what she needed. She opened her mouth to reply and then her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Claire. It was her boss. The message was urgent. Emergency at the conference venue. Need you now. Her shoulders slumped, torn once more between the world she had built and the world she was afraid to reach for. Daniel watched her expression, his jaw tightening slightly, but he didn't protest. Instead, he simply said, "Go do what you need to do." His understanding broke her more than anger would have. As she hurried off, she couldn't shake the ache in her chest. She wanted both worlds, but what if choosing one meant losing the other? Emily rushed through the night toward the conference venue, her heels clicking against the pavement, her mind a storm of conflict. The emergency turned out to be a power outage that threatened to derail the entire event. For hours, she coordinated electricians, reassured clients, and calmed frantic staff. By the time it was over, dawn was breaking. Exhaustion pulled at her bones. But beneath it was something heavier. Regret. She thought of Daniel waiting outside that restaurant, the quiet patience in his eyes, the way he hadn't pressured her. How many times could she ask fate to wait for her before it finally walked away? 2 days passed. She heard nothing from him. No calls, no messages. The silence hurt more than she expected. Claire noticed. "You're in love with him," her sister said simply one evening, curling up on Emily's couch with a blanket. Emily froze. "I don't even know if I believe in love like that." "Then why does it feel like you lost something when he didn't call?" Claire's voice was gentle, but the truth in it stung. Emily lowered her eyes. For years, she had chosen control, safety, structure. But maybe love wasn't supposed to be safe. Maybe it was supposed to be a leap. That night, she made her choice. The next morning, Emily walked into the art center construction site, her heart pounding. Workers bustled around, but Daniel stood near the half-built entrance, his attention buried in blueprints. He looked up and froze. Surprise flickered across his face, quickly replaced by guarded calm. "Emily." She stepped closer, breathless but determined. "I owe you an apology. I've been running from this, from you, because I was scared it was all a mistake. But every time we meet, every time I try to push it away, it keeps coming back stronger. And I think destiny is trying to tell me something." For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. Then he set the blueprints aside, his gaze steady and unshaken. "You don't owe me an apology, Emily. But I needed to know if you felt it, too." Her eyes softened. "I do. I just don't want to miss this chance." Slowly, a smile spread across his face, the kind that reached his eyes. "Then, let's not call it a mistake anymore." The air between them seemed to hum as though the city itself paused to listen. Emily felt lighter than she had in years, as if by choosing this moment she had stepped onto the path she was always meant to walk. Weeks turned into months, and the once random meetings blossomed into something steady, real. Emily still worked long hours, but Daniel became the balance she never knew she needed. The reminder that not everything could be planned, that sometimes the best parts of life came unannounced. And every so often, when they walked through the city together, she would laugh and say, "Remember that night on the wrong train?" Daniel would smile, sliding his hand into hers. I don't think it was the wrong train at all. Emily would look at him, her heart full, and know with certainty what she thought was just a mistake had been destiny all along. The end.